the record. Perfect. So I just remind us to be careful of the words we speak. They will be on video forever and ever. If when it comes time for anyone to speak, we're going to ask that we use our physical hands. For those who are not on video, if you would like to raise your hand with your reactions button, then Sheila will be able to call upon you, and she will be able to keep track of the order in which you all raised your hands. When you speak, once you've been acknowledged, please be sure to begin with your name, and it'll probably take a moment for us to find your little Hollywood square. So don't jump into what it is you're going to say until we can find you. Okay, 2 minutes. Oh, surprise, Patsy. Could you be our timekeeper, please? Everybody gets 2 minutes to speak. So whenever they start speaking, then you can just let them know when their time is up. I'm usually the only one that talks that long. When it comes time to vote, I will ask those in favor, those opposed, and those abstaining. So again, show of hands, and for those without video, we will come to you individually. Sheila, have you been able to take the attendance? Okay. So who may vote? You may only acknowledge the votes of those over the age of 16 years old. And this is not a St. David rule. This is a rule that is not only part of the Anglican canons, but also part of the Lutheran Constitution. This is the law, as we are a charitable organization. And that being said, all of St. David have voice. So even while your vote may not be counted, your voice is just as powerful. So we encourage you to use it here. I wish to remind us all that as we head into this virtual meeting time together, we are indeed doing the business of our charitable organization, knowing and well aware that we are the church, the people of God. So I'm going to ask all of us to remember we are beloveds of our Creator God, and each one of us is the face, voice, and heart of Christ. So let us be respectful and loving in our actions and words. Are there any questions for clarification on how the meeting will run? We have planned a couple of quick bio breaks throughout our meeting so that you can, hopefully you all know where your closest washroom is, and if you need to get more coffee or more water or whatever. All right. I'm going to be so lost at the end. We begin with the declaration. And I invite all of you to declare and acknowledge. I solemnly declare that I have been a member of the Anglican Church of Canada and of this congregation for the last 3 months, that I have attended regularly scheduled services of worship at least 3 times in this past year, that I am of the full age of 16 years, and that I have not voted as a member of any other vestry during the previous 3 months, nor do I intend to vote in any other vestry during the ensuing year. And we have everyone in favor of that. Then we move to the motion to appoint Judy McKay as our vestry clerk. It is moved by Shirley Johnson and seconded by Catherine King that Judy McKay be appointed vestry clerk for the annual general meeting dated February 6th, 2022. May I ask by a show of hands, all of those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? Clayton?
I raised my hand.
Oh, okay, sorry. Jean?
Sorry.
In favor or opposed? Ethan, did they all raise their hand and I'm just not?
I did raise my hand.
Okay, Ethan. Sonia?
In favor.
All right. I didn't get an answer from Jean.
Jean is still muted.
Jean, you have to unmute yourself if. All right. It was carried. Next on our agenda is the bishop's letter. Bishop Asbo sent it out. It was not in time for our annual report, but Sheila did send it out in the newsletter as an attachment. If anybody would like a hard copy, just let the office know and we will get that for you. Is there anything anyone would like to add to new business? Catherine King.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I would like to add two things to new business. One being our breakfast program and the other being return to worship. Return to in-person worship. Get that right?
Yeah. So A is our fundraising events for 2022, B, Plan B for being St. David, C, return to in-person worship, and D, our breakfast program. All right. And this is the first place for our bio break before we get into everything. Catherine?
You just got sick.
I have to apologize. I don't know what went on there. I just got a text that Lori said it's not working. Is that the case for the rest of you? I've
We just
logged in
couldn't
and
hear
out.
it,
I don't know
Catherine.
how many times.
Catherine, we could see the video, but we couldn't hear the sound.
Really? I wonder if I have to be unmuted.
Yes, you do.
Well, that would do it then, wouldn't it?
It would.
How about we try this again? I'm in the right place. I'm unmuted. Where is it? Oh, good grief. I'm in the right place.
Well, Catherine.
Here we go, here we go, here we go.
Okay.
you see your brother standing by the road with a heavy load. Wait, you just got a text message. And if you see your sister falling by the way, just stop and say, you're going the wrong way. You got to try a little kindness. Show a little kindness. Just try your life for everyone to see. And if you try a little kindness.
All right. Well, we tried. It was Jan Arden and a school of kiddos from Toronto who remade Glenn Campbell's A Trial of Kindness. And I thought it was inspiring to see all of those kids singing a message about letting their light shine. And I thought that would be something that would be kind of motivating for us. So, ooh, gotta love technology when it works.
Frustrating. It worked the other day.
Yeah, we practiced this, didn't we? All right, folks, moving along. We are on our the minutes of the 2021 annual general meeting. And I'm wondering if anybody has any notices, any errors or omissions. Seeing none, could we have someone move that we accept the minutes? I saw Patsy go up first and Dorothy Heineman seconds it. All those in favor by a show of hands? Yeah, I see you. Ethan got you. Sonia, did you raise a thumb or a hand?
Yay.
Okay. Awesome, thank you all. Okay. We are moving on to my report, the incumbents report. And included in my report was the report to congregation, Wednesday's Devo, and the church records, and council report. All of these reports will be received at the end with all of the other program reports. But are there any, no, I'll do questions and movers and seconders at the end. Then over to Sheila for financials.
Thanks, Lori. Just since, sorry, trying to find my place. Since I have the microphone, can actually the people that are trying to connect to audio, I don't know who that is. So when you connect, if you could show us your faces, that would be helpful from an attendance taking perspective. Thanks. Okay, moving on to Finance Committee report. The first section of the report shows the investments, and basically, Catherine will try to show us this screen. There's a lot of little numbers.
Sheila, sorry to interrupt. Did that not come up again?
We're seeing all of your slides. I think
And I'm
if you
seeing
hit,
one, and I'm seeing only one. That is very bizarre. Close that, close that. Okay, let me. Can't do that.
Catherine's trying to figure out that, and my heart goes out to her. If you can put on your camera so that I can lip read, that would help me. Thank you. And if you don't have a camera, that's okay.
Has it come up this time?
Same problem, but Catherine, I'm going to try to share my screen since I have the report too.
Okay, thank you. I'll come out.
Okay,
I'm gonna log out again. This is ridiculous.
okay, okay. I know this is not very big, but you will at least be able to see see some numbers. So during the year, we cashed in two of our investments, which were GICs, the Keith Creaser Estate and the Memorial Fund. In previous Vestry meetings, motions had been passed to allow these to be cashed, and basically we used them in combination with the money in the building fund to pay for the roof replacement during the year. So at this point, we have two investments. One is the Desjardins investment, and there's a little tiny asterisk beside that one because we don't know the value of the fund at the end of the year. We know that number that's there, 52.95, was as of the end of June. We know the markets did well in 2021, so that number should have improved a bit. And then the other one that we have is the Rectory Fund, which is down at the bottom. And it's got two little tiny asterisks, and it says that as of the time of printing, we didn't know the value at the end of the year, but we just got that report this week, and the value of that fund is now $197,612. So that's an increase over 176,856 last year. As I said, the markets did well. The challenge with that fund is that we can't get our hands on it. But we do own those. Those are assets that we have. Okay, give me a minute. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to find another report that I can share with you. This will take me a second because I wasn't anticipating having to open my files. So just bear with me for a moment.
We are happy to bear with you, Sheila.
And you get to see a face of a person who's desperately looking for files. Change in cash position is the next one I want to show you. Okay, this basically, this is a way often that churches look at things rather than looking at a balance sheet, which is the way a business would look at things. And it just basically shows by funds. On the left-hand side, what was the opening balance? That was as of January 1, 2021. The next column is how much did we receive? The next column is how much did we spend, called disbursements. And then just adding the first two and taking away the third one gives us the closing balance. And then the next column shows you what the difference was and what percentage that was. So in the first line, you can see the cash, which is our operating fund. That's what pays for salaries and building and worship supplies and maintenance and those sorts of non-program things. We had an increase of $5,200 during the year. We received a little more than we spent. And then you can see each of our designated funds. Outreach, Family and Youth Ministry, Flowers, Building Fund, Legacy Fund, and Garden Account. And we had receipts and disbursements and balances in those funds. Those funds are restricted. They're designated and they're also restricted, so they can only be spent for the purposes that the donor gave them. In some cases, they were donors. In some cases, they were grants from either the Eastern Synod or the diocese or the community fund. The outreach funds and the garden account, Rob has covered off in his outreach report, which we'll get to later, I'm sure. the family and youth ministry programs have been basically dormant during the pandemic, but we did buy a sign, a banner, and a tent kind of a thing to be used for events, and that came out of the outreach fund. Or not the outreach, I'm sorry, the family and youth ministry. The building fund was pretty much depleted because it was completely depleted at the time that we replaced the roof. And then there have been contributions since then. But we used the money that we had in the fund at the time that we did the roof, plus the creaser fund and the memorial fund, and that paid for the roof. So that's those reports. And then we'll look at actuals so again, bear with me as I find another file to show you. Oh, and Catherine started screen sharing. Okay.
Did that work?
No, it's
No.
still the whole, all of your screens.
So I hid this one in a different place. Of course I did. Okay. What I would really like to do here is just focus on the first column. We're going to talk about the budget separately. In Catherine's reports, she's got it showing separately, but so just pretend you're not looking at this column. Let's look at what actually happened in 2021. And if you look at our operating income, we took in $142,500 during the year. Let's look at this first one is what we all give to the church. It was just over just under $93,000. We had no fundraising income during the year. We very fortunately got $6,700 from the federal government for CEWS, the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy Program. That program ended at the end of October. So we will not have that source of income this year. There is a replacement program, but given the criteria, we don't qualify. Other support is a whole mishmash of things that go into that. The primary one was donations in memory of people who either died during the year or people gave donations in memory of loved ones. And again, these are just for general funds. This is not counting the water project or the outreach committee or anything. This is just the regular operating funds. Then we had rental income from the school. The rectory fund does give us a payout. We can't touch the money, but we do get a quarterly payout of the investments. And then this $509 was the investment income on the 2 GICs that we cashed, the creaser fund and the memorial fund. So a lot of numbers, $142,000 we took in during the year. Then I'm going to scroll down to what did we spend? And oh, look, we spent $164,136. And so we lost $22,000 during the year. Now the roof cost us about $19,000. So if we hadn't replaced the roof, we'd have been a couple $1,000s in the hole. So we did pretty well. And I did tell you that we used some special funds to pay for the roof. So, we did okay, but even having a loss of a couple $1,000s just isn't a comforting feeling, particularly when we know, and as I said in the report, we know that we have lost some donors either by attrition or resignation or death. And so we know that we probably are going to continue to see a decline in our revenue. And as I said, the government program helped a lot. both in 2020 and 2021, but that program is over and now we're on our own. So can I ask if there's any questions about the 2021 actual? I didn't go through each line of expenses. If anyone has it's all in your report. If anyone has a question, I'd be happy to try to answer it. Okay, I'm going to move on to the budget then.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
We
sorry,
need-
there's somebody.
Yeah, we need to do a motion to receive the financials before we go into the budget.
Oh, alrighty then. Let me stop sharing so we can see.
We need a motion to receive the financials. I see Sandy's hand up, Sandy Donald, and a seconder, Kathy O'Connor.
And now's the time to ask for questions before we have
Yes.
the vote.
Any questions or discussion? Catherine?
Catherine, you need to unmute.
Okay, let's try that again. I think I do know the answer to this one, but perhaps it could be clarified for people under administration expenses. There's a financial fee of 6,900, nearly 7,000. Could you just clarify what is in that?
Absolutely. The big chunk of it is the auditor fee,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
what I thought.
which was $5,000. It's also bank fees. So the bank charges us a nominal amount every month when we buy checks. It's also what we pay the United Church for our PAR program. And it's what we pay Canada Helps for donations that come through there. So it's all of those financial services type things. And the audit is included in there.
That's what I thought. I just, for other people that may have
Yeah,
wondered.
it's a big number.
It
It's a
is.
big number.
Thank you.
Damn audit. Oh, I wasn't muted when I said that. All right. May we take a vote? All those in favor of accepting the financials for 2021? By a show of hands. Excellent. Thank you, folks. Anyone opposed? And anyone abstaining? Awesome. Carried. Now we move on to the budget.
All right. So what, I don't really know how to present this. So let's look at the giving from the community. We're last year, which just ended 5 weeks ago, but last year we had just under 93,000. We're projecting about 85,000. The reason for that is the decline in contributors. If we're lucky, that'll be a bigger number, but we're trying to be financially responsible and realistic, and saying that we don't think we're going to see a lot of growth in that number. I mean, miracles happen for sure, but trying to be on the conservative side. We're projecting a budget of $1,200 for fundraising. I know we're going to talk about that later in the meeting, so we don't have plans around that at this point, but we've put a number in there. In other years, when we've had multiple fundraising events during the year, we've raised in the neighborhood of $6,000. So $1,200 seems to be a reasonable number of for something that's undefined at this point in time. Other support, as I mentioned last year, we got mostly in memoriam donations. I'm going to come back to this number in a minute. Rental income, we do have an agreement with the school to continue, so this assumes that the school will continue. $7,000 on income from the rectory fund, and that's the quarterly dividends that are paid out on that investment. We'll go down now to expenses, and I will go through line by line here. The Anglican allotment, the Eastern Synod benevolence, are a formula that is given to us by the diocese. It's based on, a little, what I guess everybody now knows as an algorithm that looks at what we did over the last 3 years and applies some factors and comes out and says, this is how much you pay. If we get donations to either the Anglican Church or the Eastern Synod, if we get further donations, we pass those on directly. But this is what we are obligated to pay. The Diocese Synod is going on. We don't know what the cost will be, what the fee will be for our attendees, our delegates. So we've used the number that was the fee in the past years. There is no Eastern Synod Assembly this year, so we don't have to pay for that. We get into administrative expenses, office supplies. You know, we buy toner a couple of times and that can throw things way off. Toner is probably the most expensive thing that we buy. And if any of you have printers, you know that that's the case. I always shudder the day that I have to buy a new one for mine. Telephone expenses are pretty steady. Internet software and technology pays for our internet. It pays for our website. And if we had to do a software upgrade, but I'm not aware that we have to do anything like that. So it basically is our website and what Bell charges us for our internet. The financial fees we just talked about, that includes full audit as well as fees from Canada Help and PAR. Canada Helps. Canada Helps has reduced their fees, so we just in the last couple of weeks. So I don't know what that will entail. Fees from the PAR program are really, really nominal. So if anyone who's on the call is not on PAR and has thought about it and thought they'd rather give directly, it costs us almost nothing for you to give through PAR. So that's my little plug to move your donations to PAR. Facility, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't do that. Facilities and utilities are a little bit hard to project. They seem to just go up. They never go down. Our hydro provider was sold during the year and moved to Enbridge. No, that's gas, sorry. The gas provider was moved and the hydro went to Hydro One. So it's really hard to look at what happened in past years and what's going to happen in the future because we've got different service providers and who knows what their costs will be. However, I think collectively, the line by line, we might be off a bit with the budget, but collectively $6,400 is a pretty good number. Insurance, we've put in quite an increase over last year. We may not have put in enough if for some reason insurance companies are going through the roof with their insurance, but you know, we won't be off by thousands of dollars. We might be off by hundreds. Building repairs and maintenance, we don't anticipate any major repairs to the building this year. So this covers the furnace being serviced, the elevator being serviced, the elevator license, snow plowing, all of that kind of stuff goes into that number. Worship supplies, candles and wine are the primary, and wafers and bread, things for communion. That's primarily what goes into there. Last year we did have to upgrade a monitor, so that went into worship supplies as well. Worship books and licenses, we have to pay a fee to be able to use to be able to project the words on the screen and to be able to share the hymn words with you every week through email. We pay a licensing fee, and that is to pay the artists. Supply clergy, last year we did not need to hire any supply clergy. This would basically cover us for 2 Sundays if we needed to pay supply clergy. So that's the worship program. Outreach is most handled by the restricted funds, And so that's why you see such a tiny little amount. I mean, we're a church and we have $200 in our outreach, but we do have the designated funds that are spent on outreach, and the priest discretionary. This amount of money just allows the Pastor Lori to help people out if they are in dire need, and certainly it won't help an awful lot. We know that. And then salaries and benefits look like they took a big jump versus last year, but which is true, but Pastor Lori took advantage of her benefit of short-term disability when she had her hip surgery. And so the insurance company paid for part of her salary for those 6 weeks. And that's why it's difficult to compare 2021 and 2022. So this is a pretty good number. So the expenses are all, you know, they're hard to predict, as I said, some of them, but they're not overall that hard to predict. So we think it's going to cost $157,000 approximately to run the church this year. So let's go back to our income. And in order to get the same number in this operating income, we had to plug a number in here, 31,175. About 27,000 of that is not known where on earth that would come from. We know that both the diocese and the Eastern Synod have some funds. We don't, and maybe there's some other places that have funds that we could have access to help us pay for our ministries. And that's really what we're talking about, is our ministries. We have not applied for that money yet, and we don't know whether we would get it. So it's a plug to give us a balanced budget. So we are in the hole really by $27,000. We're expecting to be in the hole by $27,000. That's a big number. And I'm nervous about our future. I'm wearing my treasurer hat, wearing my person of faith hat. I have hope, and I believe that the Spirit works in wonderful ways. But where my job as treasurer, I have to say it's a scary number, and having faith doesn't pay the bills. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Sheila. Motion to receive the budget. Could we have a mover and a seconder, and then we can chat? Kathy O'Connor and Dorothy Heineman, mover and seconder. All right. Thank you, Sheila. Any questions, concerns regarding the budget? I saw Ann's hand and I saw Shirley Johnson and US Chuck.
I just want to thank Sheila for making it so clear. When I sit and read numbers, I go, but when you see them explained, it's great. Thank you, Sheila, for a wonderful job.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And Shirley Johnson.
I was just wondering how long, Sheila, we have enough money to take us through this, to how far we will go based on what we normally give. Realistically, how many months do we have?
Somewhere between 7 and 8.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions, comments? Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of accepting the budget? Show of hands. Thank you, folks. Anyone opposed? And anyone abstaining? All right, that motion is carried. Moving on to motion to Vestry. a revision to council's bylaw. So what's the background behind this? Well, St. David for the longest while has been, their council members have been on 2 terms of 3 years each. Now, as you all know, everybody at St. David is chomping at the bit to get on council. So, you know, we've just had to, this is what we have done in the background at the past. So now what we are asking is for the Vestry of St. David Anglican Lutheran Church to agree to the following amendment. That section 4, number 2 of bylaw from 01/2019 is hereby amended to read: members of council may serve 3 consecutive terms of 3 years each, after which they must step down for a minimum period of 1 year before being elected to serve again. This bylaw shall come into force and effect upon the passage by a majority of congregational members attending our vestry today. May I have a mover for the motion? Sheila, I saw your hand go up. Ethan, your thumb came up as a seconder. Thank you. Any questions about the motion before we take the vote? I mean, it makes sense. Yes, Kathy?
I am always a little leery whenever we extend positions to such a long phase. It's just gone from 6 years to 9. And 9 years is a long time in a church to have someone in there who's incompetent. If they're incompetent, not saying they're all. It just freaks me out to see that this is that way. And it also encourages, well, if someone is in there for 9 years, I'm not going to change anything, and I don't want to change anything. And the danger is making the church stagnant. I like shaking things up and getting new blood in there, even if you have to twist their arm to join. I really don't like seeing people in there for so long.
Thank you, Kathy. I hear what you're saying. So you better stay on when it comes to nominations for council, Missy. Yes, Catherine King.
I hear what you're saying too, Kathy. Problem is, we don't have a lot of people to draw on. And this is where we're getting stuck right now, that if we don't allow this until it comes a time that maybe we've grown again and we've got additional people that we can draw on, it will tide us over, as it were, because if we were not to do this, we would have only 2 people on council who have been on council for any length of time. So it becomes, a little bit difficult there. It's not something that we have to keep forever and a day. It can always be changed again. But I think it's a good opportunity for those who are on council, if they are willing to stand for a 3rd term, to make an impact, a positive impact on the business of the church body.
Thank you, Catherine. Any other questions or, yes, Nancy Hanna.
Just further to Catherine King's comment, Kathy, it's not a mandatory 9-year sentence to serve on council. It's optional, and I do, being on and off council now for the better part of 10 years or so. Those who are making an impact tend to stay, and those who maybe aren't getting as much out of it tend not to stay. Historically, we haven't had a problem with a bunch of people just being parked there with no opinion. Yeah, again, it's optional, and generally people who have been on council in the past at St. David's do want to contribute and see positive things happen.
Thank you, Nancy. Catherine King, although you've already spoke to the motion.
I have actually, it's not necessarily to the motion, but when you do call for a vote, we need to get numbers. So if we can just do that slowly, so Sheila and I can figure out how many are for, against, and abstained.
Okay, any other questions? And you're right, just as we're able to change the motion now, you know, when God provides for us a plethora of people who want to join the board, we can always put the motion back to the way it was, right? Okay, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, and please hold your hands up as we said so that they can get the vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, thank you. Did you get those? 17. And those opposed? Thank you. 1 opposed, and anyone abstaining? 2 abstentions. All right. Thank you very much. And the next motion to Vestry is the request for reader notice. Well, what does this mean? Well, as Sheila pointed out in our budget, our yearly audits cost almost $6,000. I reached out to Bishop Kevin Robertson, who is now our area bishop, and asked if we could do a notice to reader instead, which is not as expensive. And I was ghosted, never ever replied to me. So we decided that we were going to go ahead and do the motion for this year. And then when it comes time to audit next year, we'll do a notice to reader, even if we don't hear from the bishop. Oops, this is being recorded. All right. So it's a lot of background. The diocese has a canon in Toronto. This is the Diocese of Toronto. Canon 1414 is that an audit of church wardens' accounts. Yeah, they're asking everybody who has an income of more than $100,000 to do an audit. Well, 21st century, I don't know who's not making over $100,000, but Canada Revenue says that we don't have to do an audit until $250,000, $250,000. So we are asking the cost of a full audit. Oh, okay. Sorry. We need a mover and a seconder. Sorry, there, I was just caught up in the background. So yeah, so we need to make a motion to pass this. Sorry, Catherine, go ahead.
Thank you. As part of the background that Pastor Lori, it's not in here, but we did look up Eastern Synod guidelines, and they are in line with what Canada Revenue says at the $250,000 before it is mandatory to do an audit. It's recommended to do it at all times, but it's not mandatory by CRA.
And Patsy, I saw your hand up.
I was just going to do the move.
Patsy moves. Do we have a seconder? Paul, thank you. Any questions or discussion? All right, same thing here. That St. David Anglican Lutheran Church submit a formal request to the Bishop in the Diocese of Toronto, and in keeping with the guidelines of the CRA, that Synod Council allow for a notice of reader rather than a full audit due to limited finances. All of those in favor with a show of hands. And I saw Ethan's thumb go up. Thank you, folks. Oh. Did you get everybody, Catherine?
No, I did not.
Okay, sorry, folks, again. All right, thank you. Anyone opposed? And anyone abstaining? All right. Awesome. Thank you, folks. We are at appointments and elections. So we're going to go through the whole sheet. And then we'll have one motion at the end to accept all of the appointments and elections. Ready? There's a break coming, just so you know. Guidelines for council members, now that we've changed that to 3 terms for 3 years. The church council will elect from themselves a chair, vice chair, council secretary at our first meeting following this Vestry meeting. So the declaration that I will not serve as a voting member on church council for the term. Number 2, confirmation of current council members. Shirley Johnson, this puts you in year 1 of your 3rd year. And pay attention because Kathy O'Connor's, she's got your number. Patsy Brown is starting her 2nd year of her 1st term. Mr. Ethan Hanna is starting his 1st year of his 2nd term. And Nancy Hanna is starting her 2nd year of her 1st term. We have so far nominations for new council members. We've nominated Judy McKay. She would be serving her 1st year of her 1st term. And Sonia Schmuter has allowed her name to stand, and she would be serving her 1st year and 1st term. Are there any other nominations from the floor? How come nobody's nominating Kathy O'Connor? She as much as said she wanted to be on council. Shirley, take your
Yeah, I'll nominate Kathy O'Connor. That sounds good.
The next time you go for Tim Hortons, you better buy because I'll spit in your coffee.
Does that mean you're accepting Kathy O'Connor?
Yes.
Well, let's add Kathy O'Connor to the nominations. Are there any other nominations? All right, Thank you very much. So that means you would be starting with Judy and Sonia, your first year, first term. All right, bank signing authority. Vestry appoints the following people to have bank signing authority for the church: Shirley Johnson, Sheila Hamilton, Patsy Brown, and Catherine King. Our auditors, Vestry appoints Sawatsky Professional Corporation, Devon Earl CPA, CA as St. David Church auditors for the year 2022. Our other appointments, Diane Fryer as our honorary assistant. And we need a delegate for Anglican Synod next November. I do believe it's going to be online. So we won't have to pack suitcases and waddle off to Richmond Hill. I would say, if any of you are kind of like thinking about it, it's a good experience, and it doesn't have to be anybody from necessarily from council that attends. And it's just a good opportunity to see how the larger church works or doesn't work. Okay, how about then, can we pass this, put this over to council to keep an eye and follow up to make sure we have a delegate for next November? Judy, can you make that highlight so it gets on our agenda for next Wednesday? Awesome. And as Sheila mentioned, the Lutherans are meeting nationally with the Anglicans, and those delegates have already been signed. So no Lutheran assembly this year. Council appointments. Church council, in conjunction with the incumbent, has appointed the following persons to these positions. Our council secretary is Judy McKay. Our envelope secretary is Judy McKay. Our church director and organist is Brent Mayhew. And our treasurer is Sheila Hamilton. Whew. Those are all the elections and appointments. May I have a motion to accept all of those? Sandy Donald moves. Ann Uwaschuk seconds. Any questions or comments or clarification? We'll take the vote. All those in favor? Ethan, yep. You good? Thank you, folks. Anyone opposed? Elaine and George, was that an opposed or an agreement? Okay, gotcha. And anyone abstaining? Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we're going to do all the rest of the motions. So the rest of the reports include the renewal team report, outreach committee, and I know you've gone through that with a fine tooth comb because Rob has put in all kinds of members. The Chancel Guild, the music director report, prayer chain report, Oasis group, the quilters, the electronic communications report, Harmony Center, and well, we're not passing the reports that have been set aside due to the pandemic. So could we please have a motion to accept all of the reports? That would include the reports at the beginning, the incumbent, the church records, Wednesday devotions, and church council. Could we have a mover? Patsy and Sonia, a seconder, Sonia Schwuter, sorry. Any questions, concerns, clarification? All those in favor? Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Anyone opposed? And is anyone abstaining? Awesome. All right. This is where we get a little bit of a break before we come back to finish up the new business. I just know we're going to get into some chit chatting, and we've done all of the reports and the dry stuff. So 5 minutes. It is now 11:10. If we can be back in 5 minutes for 11:15, then we will get into new business and wrap up the rest of this report.
What happened?
If you see your brother standing by the road with a heavy load from the seeds he sowed, and if you see your sister
Oh, I'm seeing a blank screen. Is that what you're hoping for?
Oh, no. You don't see the video?
Oh, I
No,
hear it.
we've got the music.
Have this. I just know it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I wanted us to come back to do our new business with a little bit of a break. So our first order of business is our fundraising events for 2022. And I'm wondering, are there two things that we can just kind of focus on for this year? Because again, we are in February, we are still in a pandemic. There's talk about the world opening up again, but it's not going to be like it was, right? So because we have another garden grant from the Lutherans, we do have quite a bit of money in there, and I think there's could be an opportunity to partner with other groups in the community to do something a little more spectacular with our gardens to make it more of a program. I do plan to do God in the Garden again this year on Wednesday nights. And there's been some chitter chatter about possibly starting a drum circle. And we can do a workshop where everybody can come and make their own drum, and then possibly, pick another time of the week then to come and do some drumming in the gardens. I'd really like to see the gathering with our tent and our banner, that we can start kind of putting that out. So that's under worship, God in the Garden and drum circle. And there may be an opportunity for a little free will offering, but aside from that, what do we want to do? Nancy Hanna.
So generally in the spring, we do an outdoor vendor event. Lori had mentioned trying to bring some garden activity into that as well. So I've reached out to the Aurelio Horticultural Society and to Park Lane Landscaping. They both are interested in participating. The only thing is the Horticultural Society and Park Lane Landscaping have both expressed a desire to do the event the weekend before the May long weekend. So that would put us on the 14th of May. because most people would be putting their plants in the ground on the May long weekend. So if we did it the weekend before the May long weekend, the Horticultural Society would have a variety of plants available and be able to speak about the different plants that are great to put in Aurelia and why, and be able to answer all of those types of questions. And then Park Lane Landscaping have acquired an enormous volume of plants that need to be put in the ground, but they have to connect with people who live on the Lake Simcoe watershed. So anywhere on the Lake Simcoe part, like if you have water on your property that comes from Lake Simcoe, it needs to, all of these plants are free and have to go in. It's part of revitalizing the shoreline along Lake Simcoe. Anyway, they're both interested in participating in that event. And then I'm sure we can talk to Cheryl Fournier about bringing all of her vendors and whatnot. So now that generally brings in, anywhere from $250 to $500 in revenue, but that's with minimal effort. We could definitely, try to make that better.
Yep.
But that's a start.
Absolutely. And I was speaking with the Duffys, and Ken Duffy wants to help with the gardens. He's a fanatic. So maybe we could put the vendor event on council's agenda, just so that we can invite other people who want to participate to help with the planning. St. James and St. A's will also reach out to them to see if, because I know they're going after, St. James is going after another garden grant, and we're hopefully going to be able to do some work together. We need to share volunteers, we need to share talent, and definitely time that will bring in buckets of treasures. Okay, so that sounds May 14th for our vendor event. That's something we've done annually. So thank you, Nancy. Again, we'll put it on the council agenda so everybody can pitch in and help. What other, Anne, US check.
Nancy, a few years ago, you did a silent auction and people donated talent, whatever they wanted to do. For example, I offered an afternoon tea and people bid on it. And I ended up doing two because two people were fighting over it. So the bid kept going up, so I did two. So I think one went for $100 and one went for 90 or something like that. Somebody volunteered or offered painting, somebody offered wooden stools, somebody did knitting. I can't remember what all, but it was things that people, talents that they had that they were willing to share and donate via silent auction, the proceeds to the church. I'm thinking that's something that could really be done virtually by people that have the technical knowledge to do it, to somehow set up a silent auction. It's just a thought, and it's unpredictable how much you'll make, and unpredictable how many people would volunteer talents of some sort to participate in that. I think the quilters put a quilt up, and it was auctioned off, and it's just a way for people to be able to participate. So just a thought.
Thank you, Anne. Nancy?
So as a discussion, what we could do is generally we ask all of the vendors to pay $20 for their table to be able to set up their booth at our vendor event. What we could do is instead ask them to donate something with a value of at least $20, and then set up an auction table sometimes those items get bid on for, more than the $20 or whatever. And so it's a risk because sometimes auction items don't go for their full value, but it would also open up an opportunity like what Anne is saying for folks to put in additional items into the auction. But as an online, I don't know. We could try it. It's a little more difficult, but we could do a day of thing and have people who attend just bid on the items that are available on the table.
Okay, it sounds to me like the silent auction could almost go hand in hand with the vendor event. Am I hearing that right? Okay. All right. Somebody brought up returning to making our little pies. Because here's the thing, right? We don't have a basement that we can use to serve like the teas, the Mistletoe Cafe and Butterfly Luncheon. But we could still use our kitchen. And I'm wondering if the pies is a good way to do some fundraising without it being an actual, event that we have to put on. Even if we did it a couple of times a year. I was talking to Doreen Lowry and she's all gung ho to help with that. Sandy Donald. Mute.
Unmute. There we
you
go. Sorry. There we go. My question, again, talking to Patsy Brown, we were talking about doing that, and that's something we could do in a Saturday. If you have, a few people who can make pastry, and then they can be put together and frozen, and we could sell them anytime. We could put a notice in the bulletin at church and online, and probably be able to, we'd make good money because you can charge $6 a piece for them.
There's, I have met a couple of people from the new lighthouse. So it's not the day-to-day living, but the supportive housing. They've got those places filled, and I know Ron would put a poster up for us over there. And we have 401 Regent, the apartment buildings. So I don't think we have to worry about orders for sure. Patsy.
Yeah, I just looked up my list from when we did the turkey pot pies, and we only charged $4 each, and we made $922. So it's a good fundraiser with not a whole lot of effort. We would need stuff donated, of course, if we were going to do, say, shepherd's pie or something. So anyway, I just want to let you know that.
Awesome. Shirley Johnson.
Yeah, that would be something that I would help with that. I think it's a good fundraiser.
Okay, is there anyone who would, oh, Louisa. Unmute. Taking us for a trip. Hi, Shirley Holcomb.
There. Now I'm on. I have a question, because I've been involved with the cross for so long that that's not me up there.
Yes,
There
you're
I
right.
am. That's not me.
No, you just go ahead and talk.
Okay,
We can
okay.
hear you.
My reason was that I have so much knitting because of the cross at this church. And people that don't even go to our church learned to knit when they were just little kids. And there was nothing else for them to do. So they learned to knit. So they have all of this stuff in their basement. And I don't even know who they are. Some of them might have belonged to Coochie Jubilee House, but they call me and they say, I have a bag of knitting. And if you have some wool, give me some wool and I'll knit whatever you want me to knit. And I have bags of stuff in my house that I fill with the cross in there. And so anybody who wants to knit with the wool that they have, and we can give them wool, it just gives them something to do. They can do it by themselves or they can do it with another person. It doesn't really matter, but people need something to do. And they do it willingly, lovingly, and giving it to somebody who wants a hood or a pair of mittens or a scarf. So I just thought that's another idea that somebody might like. And maybe we could get into that. I don't know. There's a lot of older people in my community that are about my age and they would like to knit. So whatever.
Good stuff, Shirley. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, we know our warming cross is very much a priority for us at St. David. So good stuff. So back to the pies just for a second. Is there any one or any two people that would sort of coordinate and oversee? There's going to be lots of people that would help, but you know, someone just has to kind of call people together and let the rest of the congregation know what you know, what items you would need and all of the rest of that. So
I'll do that.
okay, Sandy, thank you. Doreen is, like I said, she is happy to help. She just didn't want to be by herself. And
yeah,
I just think it's a good idea for us to do things in pairs.
I've been talking to Doreen. We had a little conversation the other day. So yeah,
Awesome.
but I'm also going to suggest that we charge at least $5 and even $6 for those pies.
Well, with the price of everything, you're right, Sandy. You're right.
Yeah.
Catherine King.
Going along with that, and Pastor Lori mentioned that, you know, we've got Ron who could put up a poster at the lighthouse, and we have people at 401. We know that the cost of the pies will have to go up because everything's gone up these days. So as part of the sale of the pies, I would like to ask Sandy and whoever else is helping her out with them, is if we could do a pay it forward as well, so that, for example, I want 4 pies, but I'll buy 6. I'll only take 4 and then pay it forward so that there is a pool of pies that can be given to those who can't afford them. So go ahead.
Sorry, we have always, when we've done any of these things, if somebody needs a boost, we've always deducted the price for somebody and maybe given them 2 for the price of 1. There's always been some way to help the people who can't afford it. But for anybody else, if you go to buy one anywhere else that's any good, you're going to pay $6 for them. So, but we can talk about that.
Nancy Hannah.
Sorry, that made my heart super happy, because the second you say that the pies can be accessible for those who are income insecure, that means the sharing place can help. So with ingredients. So I'm super happy to hear you say that. So count me in, Sandy Donald and Doreen Lowry.
Awesome. Okay, so from what I hear us saying, we're going to focus on vendor event on May 14th, and everybody's going to chip in. We're not just going to leave it to Cheryl and Nancy. We'll possibly talk about maybe doing a silent auction in there. And then we're going to go forward with the pies. And the group can decide how many times they want to do that. And then get volunteers together. I think that's enough for right now. I mean, if something else comes up later on, I just don't want to overwhelm us. So anything anybody would like to add to fundraising events for 2022? Excellent. Moving on to B. Plan B for St. David. Why is this on the agenda? Well, I know you've all had an opportunity to read the renewal team report. This whole work that we have done with our missional asset planning through the diocese, we've been at this since 2019 when Janet Marshall came. And in 2019, we already foresaw that we were going to be in financial difficulty. We knew this day was coming. And so we reached out to the diocese, and now it's 2022. As Sheila mentioned, we have enough money for the next 7 or 8 months, but I believe in a generous God. I believe in a God who is going to bless the work and the love that we are living through St. David to our neighbors and the wider community. Working with the diocese is frustrating because they don't respond. They tend to ghost us, like just leave you hanging. And that's very difficult, as I said, when it comes to trying to make plans. So I just wanted us to be able to have a discussion. I mean, if all goes well, we get grant money from the Lutherans to be able to proceed with our development work at St. David. But the reality is we cannot do anything as a faith community without considering St. James and St. A's, who are also Anglican churches here in Aurelia. So my background is public relations, and in PR, you always have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Because if plan A doesn't work, you need a backup. So our plan A is to work with all of the other churches and doing something here in Aurelia that is going to help St. David remain viable to our neighbors and the wider community. But should the bishops in Toronto say, for example, I don't know, but for example, we're just going to amalgamate all 3 churches. So let's just say, for poops and giggles, we kind of go along that line, knowing that, you know, maybe they want to blend all 3 churches. And I'm just planting a seed, you know, there may be an opportunity, you know, if the diocese comes in and says, this is the way it's going to be. I just want us to know that because of our duality, that as Anglican Lutherans, we still have the Lutheran Church to consider. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that if things don't go well with the Anglicans, we still have options as a faith community. Does that make sense? Any questions? Did I just scare anybody? Did I? Because we had a little bit of a chat about this in council, right? Before we went over the agenda, before we brought it here, you know, and somebody said, well, we've done a lot of work over the past 15 years, 20 years of working to be this blended faith community. But here we are. So, like I said, I just wanted us to be aware that living this dual life is a little, can be a little exhausting. And as I said before, each church has their own way of leading. and they are polar opposites. So all I can do is keep everybody informed. One thing that is happening on February 16th, all of the church leaders from Aurelia and a couple of people from their councils or wardens will be meeting with Janet Marshall to have a conversation about the future of the Anglican churches in Aurelia. Yes, Nancy.
So yeah, I was actually going to ask if you were able to mention that meeting. Is it the 16th? Did it change? Okay, because it was supposed to be on this Tuesday coming, right? Okay.
Correct. Can you
Okay.
still make it? You can make the 16th?
Yes,
Okay, I'll send you the link.
thank you. So yeah, just from a council perspective, this conversation about what to do with St. Luke's, St. David's, St. A's, and St. James is happening. The diocese recognizes that for churches in a small community like Aurelia, it's a lot. And Lori is right. We are an Anglican Lutheran congregation. We have a Lutheran pastor. That does give us some options separate from the Anglican Church. But we don't know what the Anglican Church is going to say. And I think that the reason that we need to take this into consideration is because although we are an Anglican Lutheran church, we are in an Anglican building. So we do have to keep that in mind. But obviously we will bring all of the information from that meeting back to everyone because it does involve everyone.
Absolutely. And I just, like I said, I just wanted to put it out there so that, you know, as we go along in this process, everybody is on the same page, right? And I just don't want there to be any surprises for anybody to say, oh, we had no idea we were in this situation. Because we've talked about it quite a bit. We know our budget, we know our money, right? But we also know why we were put at the corner of James and Regent, and we've done our work. So we know the needs of our neighborhood and we're ready. We've done everything. We are ready to go. So. Okay, thank you all. C, return to in-person worship. I just wanted to get a feel from the folks. Bishop Asbill from the Anglican Church, Toronto Diocese says we can return February 1st. Bishop Michael from the Lutheran Church says, I would like you to wait till February 20th, just so that you can put things in place that need to be in place. My first question is, regardless of when we return, whether it's like next week or the week in a couple of weeks, do we have enough people to help volunteer? We don't need to do cleaning anymore, and we do not need to do contact tracing. So it's just going to be the screening questions and then seating people. So we're slowly making a stride. So what say you? How is your comfort level, and when would you like to return? We'll start with Nancy.
Sorry, I wanted, before we had moved on, I just wanted to say one other thing, and then I'll comment on returning to church. So I just want you to all know that St. Luke's, St. A's, and St. James vestries will all have similar financial conversations that we're having, which is why the diocese and Janet Marshall are coming to chat with us. Sorry, a couple of the churches are slightly worse off than us, and some are slightly better off than us, but we are all around the same financial 8 months to 1 year reality. None of us are doing well. The pandemic hasn't been kind. And so that's why the diocese is coming to check on us. So no one is in a better boat than anyone else in this conversation. So yeah, there's just that. And then the next thing is return to worship. I'm on board whenever we decide to do it. You know, I'm there. That's all.
Awesome, thank you.
But I do have a question about, I think that we need to have a conversation about Brent. We want him back, right?
Well, here's what the bishops say, right? So Bishop Asbel says, you know, our main service cannot be, we cannot ask people to be vaccinated. And if there's anyone who is not comfortable returning to church, we have the option of doing another service where we can ask people that attend be fully vaccinated. So I think at this point, we've done everything to keep Brent safe and us safe. And I think the final decision will be up to council, but I do believe a majority of us do want to see Brent back. So, right, I think I see heads nodding and such. So I think at this point of the pandemic, we all have, we've all learned what we need to do to keep ourselves straight, sorry, to keep ourselves safe. Oopsie. To keep ourselves safe, right? We wear a mask, we remain distanced from the other person. And I think we can do all of those things and still bring everybody back. Sonia Schroeder.
I mean, I'm up for helping with anything to return to in-person service. The question is also, would we continue to have a recording of the service? And if that is something that people would be interested in, of course, there's things that we need to do for that. Like, you know, we need a camera and a bigger team of people to help with that. So I just wanted to bring that up to see if, you know, people, if we would continue to do recordings, and then also just see the logistics of that.
Thank you, Sonia. I would really prefer, if possible, that when we come back to in-person, that we would be able to Zoom as well. The setting up and the taping, it's so much work. And so we can do, I think we should do a hybrid where those who want to attend in person can come, and those who are not ready to return or for whatever reason cannot return right now, it's still a good way for us to be connected. So we did have a couple of volunteers who stepped forward to see if we could possibly set up Zoom, and I think we'll be able to make that happen. The other thing with Zoom is, like we're doing now, is that we would be able to record the service, and then we would be able to hopefully upload the Zoom service to our YouTube channel. Ethan Hanna, yes.
So from what I'm understanding is that you want to, like during the service, use like a laptop or something to connect to Zoom so that people can tune into the service from Zoom?
Correct. So we would use our the church laptop because we can Zoom on that. And then there would be like an area, probably we're hoping to set it back at the back with the overhead computer, which we're going to need another one. And then we'd have a couple of cameras. So a couple of cameras we could set up in the sanctuary, and they would be connected to Zoom, so we could have.
Oh, okay.
Does that
So,
make-
well, yeah, well, I was just thinking, we did the live stream on Christmas, didn't we? And that worked out pretty well, didn't it?
Yes, it did. But it was because of the grace of your camera, right? So if we are going to do taping and that's the way we decide we want to go, then we can apply for an area grant for equipment. So we just thought that the cheapest way to get us going so that we could do hybrid and be connected was to do the in-person with Zoom. I think it's cheaper than, than spending a camera like the one you and Brent have that we've been using all along, Ethan.
Okay, I was just asking.
Yep, good question. Sheila Hamilton.
I love the idea of Zoom. I will tell you that it's so good to see everybody's faces. And for family reasons, I'm probably not going to come back to in-person worship. And the recording was good, but it didn't feel like worship to me. And I have participated in recording from other congregations in Canada and in the US. And I realized that it was becoming less and less about worship for me because I missed my faith community. And it's one thing to listen to a great sermon, but if you're not surrounded by your community, it just misses a big chunk. So I'm way in favor of Zoom, not just because it's easier or because I feel really comfortable with Zoom, but because it allows me to see my community. It's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? So it looks like then we're going to aim for the 27th of February to be back in person. I know, I'm so excited.
So am I.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to an update with the breakfast program. So St. James Anglican Church reached out to us and said, we would like to continue doing the Sunday morning breakfasts. We made an attempt to take breakfast over to the new lighthouse.
Yeah.
They have a lot of different ways that they need to do things because they're in charge of the whole lighthouse. And we went in, we had a conversation about tweaking some things, but at the end of the day, the one thing that was not going to change was that the Sunday morning breakfast at Lighthouse was only going to be for the guests. And I know that a big part of having our breakfast was that we could sit down with other people. So St. James has reached out. They would like to do just exactly what we were doing at St. David, just move it over to St. James. I think it's a fantastic idea. I had just asked that instead of them just doing their thing, that the planning group for breakfast be made up of people from all of the churches, not just St. James. This would also mean that the money that Canadian Lutheran World Relief gave us in a form of a grant, that's the money we've been using for our breakfast ministry. We would then make a donation to St. James for, of that grant money to help them run the breakfast program. Any thoughts or comments or Nancy Hannah?
So I am in favor of this. I've had an opportunity to speak to the St. James breakfast team that was coming to St. David's. They're excited about it as well. And they've received communication from St. A's that they would like to put a team together, and from St. Paul's United Church across the street. So it sounds like it's going to be quite a group effort. So it looks like maybe St. David's might only have to put together one team, which is nice, because I know there's not a lot of us left that are interested in helping out with that breakfast ministry every week, especially. But I do like this idea. I think it's nice, and it gets so much closer to what we were offering at St. David's. Yeah, so I'm in favor of supporting this new ministry.
Awesome, thank you. Catherine King.
Thank you. I too am in favor of this ministry and supporting it. I just feel that the committee set up to run the program needs to be made up of members from all 3 or 4 churches, however many are involved, and that monies that we turn over to St. James have to be fully accounted for, so that we can account for our report back to where we receive the funds from. So I think there needs to be a committee, somebody who's willing to be on a committee in the organizing side of it, besides offering a team to cook.
Thank you, Catherine. I have also been talking to Carrie Lemieux, and Carrie is still interested in helping out, and she might be the person to sit on that committee to represent St. David. So that's it. Any questions about breakfast? Oh, sorry, Kathy O'Connor, your paw is up.
Woof, woof. Just, I'm in favor. My only worry is that the people from the area may not be able to get there. Like from 401 Regent or whatever. That's all my concern is.
Yeah. One of the other things that came along with the breakfast program was that Outreach would every now and then give us some bus passes, and I could hand those out. And, you know, if each of the churches chipped in and we could have some bus tickets, we would be able to get folks. And they get over there just fine for the Wednesday toonie luncheon. So that's another thing. If it starts in the next while, Out of the Cold is just around the corner at OCC. So there would be all of those people to feed. And where else? Oh, the other people from Lighthouse in the next stage setting. Those folks would probably waddle up there for breakfast as well. All right, so any other changes, or because we're going to have to figure out how much money to, to share. That grant is already in council, and Outreach would be able to make a decision on how much money we want to send over to them to get them started. Okay. Anyone have any comments or questions about that? My friends, that brings us to the end of our new business. We're done-ish. Just our closing worship and announcements. But before we jump into that, did we miss anything? Is there anything that has happened that you didn't get to say something and you wish you would have?
I look forward to returning.
Amen.
Yeah.
We all are. All right, beloveds, I invite you to turn to the closing worship. Oh, look it worked. Our announcements for this week. Outreach is meeting on Tuesday, February. We gather for our devotions at 10 a.m. And then in the evening, we have our council meeting via Zoom. And next week, as we mentioned, is a regional ministry meeting at 7 p.m. with Janet Marshall from the diocese. I believe that's everything. So, my beloveds, go in peace, faithful, hopeful, and loving. Thanks be to God. Yay!